Coach Gundy with us now, and let's look ahead to Kansas State. And new coaching staff, Coach Snyder no longer there, but are they similar in what they're doing to what Coach Snyder did?
Very similar. Obviously they know what they're doing coaching. They've had tremendous success at the other level, and they've come in and it looks like adapted to the personnel that Coach had. But it seems like it's a smooth transition because they did some of the same things at North Dakota State. They've got all seniors, I think, on the offensive line. Their tight end's a senior. The quarterback has played. They've got quite a few seniors on defense, right? Mm-hmm. They've got some guys. So they've come in and done a nice job of just working their system into what they've had. And they're very similar. They're offensively, they're going to be in 21 and 22 personnel, a little bit of 20. In the same concepts, they're going to run power play, which is what Coach liked to do when Coach Snyder was there. Defensively, they're still 4 down. That's what they did a year ago. A lot of zone with Coach Snyder, soft zone, more pressure. 32% of the time, they're pressuring and playing some man. So that's a little bit of a transition. Special teams-wise, to a certain extent, almost identical to what they've done in the past, which that's what I would do, as good as anybody in the country over the last however many years. So new staff, a lot of similarities.
So they huddle. I mean, and that's something that's very unusual in this conference. It's something Kansas State's, it's not like it's unusual for them necessarily, but how's that changed the dynamics of the game? Because that's just not something we see in the Big 12, obviously.
The fans will think it's moving slower. They're so used to games that we're playing fast and we play, probably majority of the teams we play don't huddle up.
Right.
And half those teams play fast like us. So I think they'll think the game's moving slow based on that part of it. It'll be an adjustment for all of us. Does
it help the defense, though, in that it might reduce the number of plays they have to play? Because in some positions you're having to play guys a lot of snaps. Could it help at all, or really not the case?
Yes, if you stop them.
Oh,
if you're stopping them, then the total number, I think they're averaging about 68 plays a game. So the total number will be down 10, 12, 14 plays based on some of the other teams in this league. But you still got to stop them. That way you can get the offense back on the field and do what we do at Oklahoma State.
Stay with us. The Showdown Breakdown with Brandon Weeden is coming up.
Living with joint pain. Take the first step at mercy.net/cowboysortho.
Josiah, how you doing? Dominique, Nadia.
What if I go into labor in your car?
Why do I keep self-sabotaging myself?
Parts of science can be kind of confusing.
Really?
Thank you, honey.
So Joe's on the beatbox.
You haven't asked for my advice, but I'll just offer it.
You were so great. 4 stars, okay?
Time for this week's Showdown Breakdown with former Cowboy quarterback Brandon Weeden. And let's just cut right into Kansas State here. There's a lot of interesting dynamics in this game. And one of them is Oklahoma State's tempo offense against a Kansas State team that this year hasn't seen that, and they don't play that way. How does that dynamic come into all this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, first it starts in practice. It's kind of hard to simulate for the offense because you're asked for the coaches to put on playing cards, basically, what the play is, and you're asked the scout team to go execute it. So it's hard to get those guys back to the huddle and get out there and still have the ability to play fast and kind of simulate that for your defense. And so a team that already plays relatively slow, they huddle, pretty methodical offense, with the fact that they don't have a whole lot of time to get these scout team guys ready to play with that tempo. I think that's the biggest challenge. It's hard to get your defense ready to go out and play as fast as you're going to be asked to play on Saturday.
The good news is Kansas State had an off week, but still, it's like a totally different language. Is that a good way of saying it in terms of just the tempo and how things evolve?
Yeah, I think sometimes the the coordinator will come up with maybe their top 6 or 7 calls, and they'll put a signal with it, or maybe they'll put a code word with it, so they have the ability to play faster that way. Whether it be their call for cover 2 is this, and their call for cover 1 is this, and that way, depending on the offensive formation, they have the ability to make adjustments as far as alignment goes, and still have the ability to play relatively fast.
Kansas State defensively, one of the best teams in the country in terms of stopping the run. And their entire 2 deep on both sides of the ball is just loaded with seniors, including their defensive line, which is very experienced. But what did you see from Kansas State's defense that really got your attention?
The first thing, I watched about 6 plays, and the first thing that jumped off was their front on defense. They really get after the passer one, but they have a lot of movement. They're high motor guys that cause a lot of havoc, not only in the run game, but again in the passing game. So their front 4 is really good. Some older guys, they played a lot of football. But I kept watching it, and they have some NFL tendencies as far as their X's and O's. They run a lot of the same coverages that some of these teams are running on Sundays, some of the same blitz packages, some of the same fronts, and so it's going to be a unique look for Oklahoma State. I think it's a defense that causes some problems with the way they align pre-snap. So your communication, particularly up front, has to be on point.
And in an era where you see a lot of rush 3, drop 8, 3-man fronts, they're a 4-man front.
Yeah, and that's going to be, they're going to have to flip the switch a little bit. The offensive line, it's going to be a completely different look. A lot of 6-man boxes. So now the back, the running back's going to be asked to do some things in protection that maybe he wasn't asked to do the first few weeks. So it's going to be a different look. The terminology, their mic points are going to be a little bit different. So the communication, starting with the center, is got to be on point from the start.
Offensively, Kansas State has an offensive line with more than 100 career starts combined, tons of experience on the O-line, and they're kind of the same K-State in many ways. They rush the football, they huddle. I mean, there are certainly similarities to what they did under Coach Snyder, but much slower tempo than a lot of teams in the Big 12.
Yeah, again, it's kind of what you expected from the past as far as they want to play slow, they want to control the clock, they want to keep obviously high-powered offenses off of the football field. So they do huddle. I think the quarterback's a really good player. He gets them in and out of plays really well. I've noticed he's kind of changed some plays at the line of scrimmage, but they're very old school. 2 tight ends sometimes. They'll go to the fullback. They'll run, all kinds of schemes that maybe, again, you see on Sundays. There's a kind of a hybrid mix of, the power game, and then they have some finesse where they'll spread you out and do some jet sweep stuff. So it's going to be a challenging test for this Cowboys defense.
So fans are watching this, and they're getting anxious hearing all of these praises we have for Kansas State. So we can't leave without maybe offering what are some advantages Oklahoma State might have that could get them over the hump against this experienced K-State team.
Well, I think it starts with the tempo. I mean, that's kind of the bread and butter of this offense. I think you continue to run the ball extremely well and not get away with it. It's not going to be perfect. The run game is, they're going to make their plays on defense. They're going to get some 1-2 yard gains, but you got to keep plugging away and keep running the football. And then on the outside, those guys have to win. There's going to be a lot more post safety, so some more one-on-one matchups. But it's going to be about patience. You're not going to get a ton of big plays, and then just do your job and execute at a high level.
That's a Showdown Breakdown. He's Brandon Weeden. I'm Dave Hunziker. Thanks for watching.